Had to do with a price dropping.
Basically, right? You have to trim something. If you weren't going to trim Palantir. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly, episode number 95. We are here today. This was a big week. This was a crazy week in the world of Palantir. Arnie, did you just wake up right now?
Well, sort of a year ago, but you can see some signs.
We have a lot to discuss. I'm just going to tweet this out now. Yeah, this was a crazy week. First, Arnie, while we're getting ready, how was your week? How are you thinking about the macro, the markets, before we even get into Palantir?
Well, let me say that I do embrace the philosophy of Howard Marks, one of the best value investors out there, that macro is important, yet is not really knowledgeable. You can't really have a good forecast of the macro, and the proof is that you don't see macroeconomists on the top of Forbes. So everybody talks about macro. We know macro is important, but unfortunately, it's not really knowable. Given that, it is important to be aware of the macro changes, like the Fed is going to keep the interest rates high for a while, higher for longer, and that has impact on the expectations of people, especially on the more growth side of the spectrum, because these are the companies that are more influenced by the change in interest prices. Now, is that a direct impact on the fundamentals? I would say yes and no. We have to think of the interest rates as the gravity that works against businesses, but more importantly with stocks, because if the interest rate is high, then all the discount mechanism with which you value any company is penalized. So, and this can be very strong for a company like Palantir. The irony is that the higher the rates are, it is true that it impacts valuation, but it is also true that it means that if you have plenty of cash, like $3 billion, you get literally more money risk-free if the interest rates stay high. Meanwhile, actually putting more pressure on the companies that don't have that sort of financial fortress. And if you put the battleground at a difficulty level that is tougher, that automatically creates a dynamics where the best players can emerge by directly challenging the competitors. So I would encourage everyone when thinking about macro is that the first level thinking is we have interest rates that are higher, that impacts the valuations, so it's bad. On a second level thinking, there are these dynamics. If you have a lot of cash, you are actually happy because you get more money, and you know that the battlefield becomes a tougher place. The arena gets tougher. And if you are the best gladiator in the arena, guess what? You're willing only to fight. And we had some hints this week from our Carpetto that, you know what? The competition, we want to embarrass them.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is as interest rates go higher, and the Fed obviously said at the FOMC meeting today we're going to be higher for longer, that you've got to have companies with really good fundamentals during that time. I mean, you got to be the gladiator in the arena. And I think, now GAAP profitability seems to matter more than ever because unprofitable growth tech is getting destroyed and going to probably continue to get destroyed. Having that $3 billion in cash, authorizing that $1 billion for the buybacks. It seems like as much as we've criticized them, things have been going according to plan, and they're up 110% year to date.
It's always easy to criticize from outside. Let me say that I believe Palantir internally has better data than we have. And we are in the position where, or we really trust the management, we think that they are not idiots. But if we think they are a good data company and they can make some mistakes, but as a good investor, when they make mistakes, they make relatively minor mistakes. But when they make the right things, they make very good wins. That's a bet I'm happy to keep staying in.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. All right, so let's get into some of the core news that we had this week. Got a lot to get through. First, Arnie, did you hear Cathie's team talk for 4 minutes about why they bought back Palantir?
No.
Okay, so let's play that live. So they did a market update webinar that Ark does with her team. And for 4 minutes, they discussed why they sold Palantir in 2022 and why they recently bought back in. So I think this will be good for everyone who hasn't heard it. It'll be good for Arnie who hasn't heard it. And then we'll discuss the impact this has on Cathie buying 1 million shares of Palantir.
Last year, they said, the competition on the government side. That was the key argument that they raised. My opinion was they didn't understand what Palantir was. But
see, Arnie, you're so dead on this stuff. You're gonna enjoy hearing this.
No, but because I mean, you can't really sell a defense, like the top AI defense contractor, as a war breaks out, and artificial intelligence is going to play a big role in that. Like that already tells you they invested a lot of money without knowing what they were doing.
No, it was fucking stupid. It was stupid. Like Brett Wanton, the chief futurist. First of all, if anyone ever names someone at my company the chief futurist, I'm firing them immediately. I don't care how like modern you. No, chief futurist. No, you're a CEO, CFO. We're not doing this. CFO is not chief futurist offer. We're not doing that. Second of all, it's marketing. Second of all, I mean, it's gonna be so funny when you hear this. Like the idea that there was government competition against Palantir, which it's reasonable to believe, but the idea that after 20 years of lobbying and doing all the crazy shit Palantir needed to do to get into the government, that they were gonna have some massive level of competition, that led to selling 37 million shares, liquidating $400 million in losses for your investors. It was honestly unforgivable until they bought back in, but it was pretty damn stupid. All right, here's what they have to say about Palantir.
From humans. So we're still acting for Tesla specifically.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Happy to shed some more light here. So investors may have noticed that we moved away from Palantir after hearing about the government moving away from what are called sole source contracts. When Palantir first came to market, they were really the only option for some of the modern data-based operating systems that the government was looking for. And so they won these sole source contracts that gave them kind of prime positioning and accelerated deals in the government space. For fear of relying too much on a single vendor, the government has been cautious about continuing those sole source contracts. And that caused us to have caution in the name. But we stayed in touch and continued watching. And we think some of those fears around sole source contracts are abating. In particular, we've heard anecdotes that the commanders in charge that are actually using Palantir's software products understand their value proposition and know that they're still quite differentiated. And we also like the company's direction in terms of navigating this environment where they're increasingly offering products and services for newer technology companies to build on top of Palantir and almost use Palantir as a service in serving to fulfill government contracts. So we think that de-risks the opportunity there. The second part, and this is what's most important, I think, is that we think they're really well set up to take advantage of the generative AI opportunity. And this comes from a variety of products they've building over the years that really seem like they were laying the groundwork for deploying AI at scale within an enterprise. So Foundry is one of those, for example, which seeks to connect the disparate data stores within a company and the different systems, categorize into what's called an ontology, both the nature of that data and how it interacts across different workflows in an organization, and the ability to get a kind of bird's eye view, top-down digital twin look at an organization, its data, and its processes, and use that view to create automations that can not just analyze data and produce insights, but also take action based on those insights. And that framework happens to be exactly what you need, that scaffolding to plug something like a large language model into a workflow to allow the automation of steps that maybe couldn't have been automated before, or to increase accuracy or accelerate certain existing processes. So they've been quick to market and launching what they call AIP, their AI platform, which builds on top of this concept of an ontology to create use cases that actually have really quick time to value at some of their customers, building chatbots that are handling customer service requests just in a matter of weeks that customers are finding really great value in. So those are some of the reasons we've become more constructive on the name, and why you'll see it in portfolios including ARKK, ARKW, and ARKF. Last thing I would highlight is that we also recently recorded a podcast with Palantir's CTO, Shyam Sankar, talking about all of this and their positioning in AI and thoughts for the future in much more detail. That's coming out on Thursday, September 28th. So I would definitely encourage any listener wanting to learn more about what Palantir is up to tune into that podcast.
Yeah, if I could just add in there, it was Frank and I did the podcast together, and it was excellent. It added new dimensions to my understanding of Palantir and AI generally. So highly recommend it.
Dude, isn't that crazy? Like they sold 37 million shares a year ago, and now they're doing a podcast with the CTO. Cathie's like, I'm learning more about AI, and they're literally quoting what we've been saying on the weekly in terms of ontology and the Fed start stuff, and the government generals are like, yeah, we can't get enough of Palantir, and they rebuilt their thesis, and now they're investing in Palantir.
It would be nice, a fair word where we say, we realized that we invested a lot of money without really understanding what it was, just because it was hyped. Now, after more than 1 year, we finally realized, hey, this is an AI company. This is a...
It's crazy. Like, as a Palantir shareholder that's been here for a while, I'm sure, like, just realizing that they finally get it, and they got it to the point where, like, yeah, they're not admitting they're wrong, but they realize how big of an opportunity is that they're willing to get back in the name, even though they took such a big loss, and justified to their LPs that, sorry, we were wrong, but this is the opportunity right now.
Well, let me say that in order to be a futurist, you need first to understand the present. Boom. So, if you can share the screen, please.
Yeah.
I just wanted to underscore probably what we are seeing. CATHIE loaded a lot at the beginning. When Palantir listed in October 2020, I remember it was me, her, very, very few other people actually invested. And the stock was there. Like, it was quite expensive given the fundamentals. At the moment was burning cash. But the valuation was not extreme. It was around 10x sales. And given the growth, even if they were burning cash, it was not that bad. And then when CATHIE started buying more aggressively, boom, she triggered the hype cycle on Wall Street Bets. Unfortunately, we don't see the price here, but we know the price here went really to the moon, up to 30, almost 40 for a day. And you can see here from the violet line, which shares the number of shares they had. They increased dramatically in that $20-30 range. So they invested heavily, and then when the price dropped here in March, when the war broke out, boom, they sold completely. Then finally they got in when the stock rise a little bit, but now the amount of shares they're actually having is still relatively small from what they actually had previously. Now, my speculation is that they realized they made a mistake, and now they are realizing that this AI theme is way bigger than they initially expected. We don't have to think of Cathie Wood thinking as a Warren Buffett that wants to pick certain companies, but we have to think of Ark seeking to invest in a theme meaning AI, electric vehicles, robotics, this stuff, like these broad general topics that could interest people, because they know that a lot of money will eventually flow to that theme by building dedicated funds. A lot of media will keep covering, and that's what CATHIE has been doing for her entire life. Like, she didn't start most of her career are not on stock picking, but on theme research and investing. So a company for her is just a marketing tool to actually tell the narrative, to be exposed into that theme. If that story is appealing and a lot of money flows into that theme, she makes money, because it's like, I enter early into something that will receive a bomb of attention. So that's why she then spreads these crazy high price targets, because that encourage people to, hey, let's have a look. But maybe Tesla is a little bit expensive given what we want, but the topic is hot, and the asset managers need to keep chasing these hot topics. So, Tesla is hot, let's go to Rivian. And then you have interest in the theme. That's how these kind of funds work. So I would not be surprised at all if now we will see a crazy high price target from Ark that now is showing interest again. And I would say I'm actually surprised that for a company that wants to be futuristic, they were quite general on Palantir. Then they sold out immediately as a war broke out, which was basically the key catalyst for the government sector.
Yeah.
I can sound war fan, but one of the core theses when I started buying Palantir was, if the end of world ends, the world ends, and at the time I had like 70% of the portfolio invested in Apple. So I was scared of something going bad with China. So actually, Palantir was one of my key theses. If something extremely bad happens, I know this company first resist, second, it has all the conditions to actually shine. So bottom line, Ark is a marketing company more than investment company. And I'm actually ready to see some wild price targets, and I think we will see them really surfing this wave. What do you think?
You think they bought Palantir back in 2021 off the hype cycle narrative of AI, even though now we're kind of in that hype cycle narrative, and they sold out of it right before their biggest catalyst, which was Ukraine, which set the foundation up for Palantir.
No, actually,
after, right?
I mean, from the chart we saw, like literally in March, when the war broke out, the war broke out like in the 28th of February. So you see around this period, boom, they sold out. And it's not like the tensions were just before. So war broke out, they sold.
Yeah, that made no sense. It's so great. Now I forgot they sold right when the war broke out. So they didn't trust that Palantir's software essentially would be used. They didn't think they had a government moat. And it seems like after talking to a bunch of generals and people that they had to talk to, they came to a broader conclusion. So do you think that they actually believe Palantir is going to be part of the new AI revolution, or do you think they're still uneducated about it and they're just taking a bet on that name?
I think now they are grasping it way more. So we have to be fair. With Tesla, they really understood things way ahead of the market, and they were rewarded for that. The problem with what she did is that even if they had Tesla from very early, then they completely screwed up by selecting all the other bad investments. So it's like you have a 10x, but the rest of your choices are so bad that at the end of the day, you are still dead. with Palantir, I think they are getting there. A lot of like the cool stuff of this generative AI is that people are actually trying to understand better what's going on. I think we were way more aware because we early understood that, hey, this is an AI company, but they don't really want to build models. They want to build what's around the models, the infrastructure, and there is where the real value is. So we are getting there. I think the general awareness is increasing. And let me ask you, do you think the average fund manager, like what's the degree of awareness of the general fund manager right now? What do you think?
For Palantir?
Yes. With Tesla, now all the fund managers can like or hate, but I think it is fair to say it is an amazing company. We can argue more car company or software company, a weird mix, but everyone needs to agree it is a great company. Then you can like it, the valuation, you can think the top, the label, but on Palantir, do you think it is now appreciated or is still, I don't understand, I avoid?
No, I think most money managers that own Palantir don't know anything about Palantir. I really do, because and you've had this experience as well. We've had people who either consumed my videos or read your Substack that have messaged us that have said, hey, we bought Palantir because of you guys. I mean, literally, I've said publicly, this guy in Texas who manages $30 million bought some 300,000 shares of Palantir at around $7 because he found my channel. And it was just like, and even when Palantir was $7, I don't even think I was making the best content about Palantir. I didn't even understand it as well as I think I do now. So I think a lot of people that are up on Palantir that got in at $7, they got in because AI hype tech, and now they're up big. And now it's on them to actually learn enough about it to hold for that, exponential gain we think is coming. Because if not, they're going to sell out just like CATHIE did. It's going to be the same thing across a bunch of funds.
I think people know for the name because it was in that basket of GameStop, blah, blah, blah. So back in 2020, 2021, as they entered these meme stock clusters, at least the name is there. But, once you are labeled in the stock market and also in life, then most people will have a prejudice on you. So I think there here you will really see the normal distribution of early adopters, people who actually understand a little bit later, but they understand. And then you have the tail of people that just judge on perception. So I think right now we are neither at 50% of awareness. Probably we are at 30% awareness, but everybody at least heard the name. That's the gut feeling. You guys, what you think in the comments?
Yeah, let us know what you guys think. I mean, I think a lot of fund managers, there's got to be, like, I think the Japanese actually understand Palantir, especially Sampo, right? Because they're using them. And some of the funds there probably have some intel, but the average fund manager in America, like Morgan Stanley, do we think Morgan Stanley actually understands Palantir? Probably not, right? And it's not just because they downgraded the price. They probably just haven't done the due diligence that people like
Morgan
us have done.
Stanley is crazy because they were one of the analysts following since very early. They are actually a client. They even presented at FundRecon. So they understand it as a client. They don't understand it as a stock.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Someone decided to come to work this morning, and he is officially here. I mean, do we got to settle this on stream? Do we got to do the contract negotiations right now, or like how are we going to resolve this? I've got $18 of ad revenue. I can send you guys $6 each if you're willing to.
I had a guest. I'm sorry.
A guest?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Palantir can wait a little bit. What type of guest are we talking about?
It was the house cleaner, late cleanup,
What was she cleaning up?
I didn't say it was a she.
Was it not a she?
I'm here to talk about Palantir.
Oh wait, what'd you get her for dinner? Because you were probably having dinner, right?
Oh no, we just some pizza. We were just chit chatting.
Oh, you were just eating pizza with your maid.
Yeah,
You just
you know,
waited.
you know, it costs inflation are high, and so
Where'd you order the pizza from?
it was a Friday night, and so figured, be nice to the cleaners. They're nice to me. I'm nice to them.
Okay, so did the maid leave, or is the
Always
maid
buy
still
your
in-
house cleaners lunch. They love that shit.
Is the house cleaner still in the house, or did she leave?
They left.
So she's in the other room. You told her, "Hey, I got to go do
No,
something real
not
quick,"
this
and
time.
then-
Not this time. No, not this time.
Interesting.
I've done that
Very
in the past, though.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. I have no house cleaners in this room, so I'm happy you're enjoying the after party of the Palantir podcast when this podcast ends.
I think what
What'd you say, Arnie?
They. So not one.
Oh, so we
Nah,
got
I don't got that that pull like Arnie. Arnie's got the pull. I do not.
well, it is Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, so I would imagine, there's a lot more opportunities down there. All right. What were your thoughts on the other woman of your life, Cathie Wood, buying Palantir?
I don't know. I don't really put too much thought into it. She buys and sells stocks like Target goes on sale with clothes. So I mean, I don't.
But maybe not her buying and selling, but maybe their logic. This idea that they talk to the government officials and then they're talking about ontology in this like 4-minute clip. Like, you think it's all bullshit, or do you think they actually are starting to get?
I hope. I mean, I thought that it's prudent of her to buy it before, right? Because I mean, I saw the long-term vision back when I bought Direct Listing Day. I've been bought into the vision now for 6-7 years since I've been working with the company, and so I was pretty disappointed when she sold. But my hope is that she's real and honest about it, and I think my fear that she does this thing in this dance of always trying to explain why she buys back into a company or buys a company, and then she gets rid of them too quickly. And so, she's obviously very successful. She's much more successful than I am. So I don't, but from an outsider's perspective, if you truly believe in the fundamental long-term potential of these companies, hold on to them a little bit longer, and maybe I don't understand the underlying impacts of being a public fund manager, right? With a lot of money and capital influxing into a fund and then having to exodus. And so you're having to manage these positions and stuff of the like, but she's held on to Tesla for this long. So why isn't she held on to some of these other organizations for, obviously she couldn't hold on to Palantir for as long because it hasn't been public for that long, but you understand what I'm trying to get to, right? She always has her core fundamental positions. Why hasn't Palantir been one of them? Is kind of my thought.
I guess we're all hoping
maybe it is now.
I guess we're all hoping that now is the turning point where she actually has that Tesla-like thesis on Palantir, but
I think it goes back to what you guys were discussing, right? Do people actually fully understand? And I don't even understand, right? Like I'll go to work and people know that I do Palantir weekly, and they'll be like, "You do a good job for an engineer. Like you do good for an end user." But there's like some criticisms about, and so it's like even somebody like myself who doesn't fully understand the intricacies of all the back end stuff, right? Like the data lake connections and all that sort of stuff that I don't really get to deal with, right? I'm more on the end user side. And so I see a little bit of when the products are kind of polished up and the applications are polished up, but I get some feedback, and I'm sure when I talk, CodeStrap probably is like wanting to strangle me because I'll probably like think I know something and I don't. But I think it's in just reality. I think people need to recognize that the company is way further ahead than, when they say they're ahead, I believe them. And I don't think people also believe that. They think and listen to some of these other great storytellers like the Slootmans of the world, and believe that they're on the same playing field when they're not. We were having a discussion the other day about some of these other data analytics platforms and time series visualization platforms to which people are like comparing. And I had a coworker who, isn't 100% both boots in on Palantir, by the way, but he uses the product. And he was like looking at some of these products that are out on the market that try to advertise that they're the most premier and this and that. And he's just like, all of them are good at time series data, but none of them are good at like data warehousing and, you know, that storage aspect of things and organization of data, you know. So he's like, Palantir is really a good suite to literally build a backbone for your entire organization. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's literally what it is, right? It's the operating system for which you could build on top of. And I still don't think everyone really understands it in a way, like, and I try to have these sort of conversations with people all the time. It's like, imagine, like, and I'll say this bluntly and I'll give it back to the room, but it's like you use an open a Microsoft computer and a Windows operating system to play video games, to watch this stream, to you know, maybe write some Word documents or something like that, open up Excel, write some emails. It's like you get on Foundry to literally live in data, right? That is the sole MO. And so the connectivity between all the applications is seamless. You can get data, you can collect the same data in one application as the other application. Everything talks to each other. You know, if you want to present a time series data on a Word document that's live and doesn't have to be screenshotted, you know, it's something that you could pull up and it's actually live action to within minutes of when that data is actually recorded. You know, all these things talk together seamlessly, but yet, you know, we're trying to onboard products like Microsoft Fabric, which collaborates well with Microsoft Teams. It's like, I get it. You want to have this good social, you know, company aspect of things, but in reality, if you're trying to get deep down and dirty and try to correct the path in which your company is headed, you have to live in the data. You can't be living in this world of like people know best, because the data is what's going to tell you what is best, not necessarily the people that are telling the stories. And so I don't want to say Microsoft's operating in this weird old world. I think it's the world that people are still familiar with. And so there is obviously a market for that. Microsoft obviously is king when it comes to that. But I think that people are starting to open themselves up to the world of there's sensors everywhere. The Internet of Things is real. And in order to capture all these data points and make real life decisions and impacts for some of these companies, you can't be doing things the way that you've done them for the past 10, 20, 50, 100 years. You have to think about it from the ground up now that you have all this data to make the appropriate decisions. And so I don't think that that's what Snowflake is trying to do. I don't think that that's what Alteryx is trying to do. I don't think that's what all these other companies like UiPath are trying to do. Palantir is trying to do that. But anyway, I'll get off my high horse and open it back up to the room.
Well, it seems people who didn't understand Palantir is because they just saw it from an application standpoint as something you plug into your organization to do stuff on top. But more than being an application, Foundry is a data infrastructure that allows you to build application. So I think only now people are starting to understand that. And to me, that's the most important thing, because if you are the infrastructure, you can cooperate with everyone, and gradually you can substitute the other SaaS applications. And if you remember, each organization has even too many SaaS companies they are dealing with. While if you are just an application, you are there competing for your space, especially if you are a niche product. So I think that is what it was not really understood, because also CATHIE would insist a lot. All the data that will be created will be exponentially higher. And guess what? You basically sold the data infrastructure for this other company. Let me show you the screen just to be a little bit childish. For what? For Raku. And that was her.
I love how you said it. Raku.
Raku. So
that's true. She sold Palantir for advertising.
So that's the harsh reality. So I believe she's a great storyteller. I don't think she's actually a great investor. I would rather invest in Ark as a fund, like the company that owns the funds and gets the fees, because they are great at telling stories. more than the funds. But I would,
That's
I
fair.
mean, I would say,
Well,
let's
she's
go.
back. She's back. Whether we love her or hate her, I love her personally. I love Kathie. She's back, and so that's all that matters. All right, we got to move to this topic because this is really important. Tesla, SpaceX, Foundry, Starlink. Here's a 1 minute 30 clip. Shout out to Palantir Vision for posting this. Let's listen to KARP talk on this latest interview yesterday, and then I want to get everyone's thoughts on what's going on.
Next to Elon Musk, a lot has been made about that. And Palantir's warfare system uses this meta constellation platform, which basically tasks hundreds and hundreds of satellites to get their imagery and then feed that down to the battlefield. I'd just like to know, are you still using Starlink? I know you have before. That's Elon Musk's SpaceX satellite constellation. And I ask that because he's kind of fanboyed over, Vladimir Putin. He said some very, very sort of lovely things about that autocrat. It's a little disturbing, especially considering Putin has been somebody, again, free speech. I get Elon can talk about that, but you still using the Starlink satellites?
I have a variant view on this. If you go to a surgeon, you don't agree with them, and they're the best surgeon, you still go to them. And I know Elon. I like him. I think he's a super important entrepreneur. We don't have to agree on everything. His products work. I am in the business of delivering. You could ask him, will you stop using Palantir because KARP is going to support Ukraine? I will use the best products available on the market to help our allies and hurt our adversaries. And for me, if you're supplying the product, I will use it. And you do not have to agree with me on as long as the technology is reliable on the battlefield.
Okay.
And I'm very happy to fight you over a cup of coffee, a beer, or a run.
Or a hot chocolate.
Or a hot chocolate. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. In that clip, did he say the Tesla is using Palantir, or did he not say it in that clip? All right, I'm gonna pull this up again. So he confirms they are using. First, let me get. He confirms they are using Starlink. So Arnie, what are your thoughts on Starlink meta constellation? We kind of knew that was already happening, but what are your thoughts on KARP confirming it?
Well, by definition, a meta constellation works if it attaches to the broadest number of satellites out there in order to have the full spectrum of the coverage. And we even had the videos showing meta constellation connecting to satellites from Starlink. So on that side, it is a great confirmation. Happy for that. On the more Elon Musk uses Tesla side, I would say that's a precious hint that could increase the probability of actually Elon Musk with Tesla, X, or SpaceX somehow using Foundry. I would say that increases the probability. I would not take it as a certainty because that you say you ask Elon Musk to detach Palantir would be similar to say, okay, now you go outside and scream. It's like that thing that potentially is true, but it could be used as a theoretical example to show the argument. So,
yeah, and Arnie, real quick, this is the actual clip right here. So this is where he actually mentions the Tesla thing. Let me just say this here.
In the business of delivering, you could ask him, will you stop using Palantir because KARP is going to support Ukraine? I will use the.
Okay, so that's it. That was the sentence I think everyone is thinking of a lot. I personally think he's using it as a hypothetical, as a metaphor. He's not actually saying Elon's using Palantir. But what were your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, my interpretation is I believe somehow they use it because in the same way, KARP recognizing, okay, Elon Musk is a great entrepreneur. We deal with what he does because what he does is the best. I think that is extended on the other way around from Musk's perspective. We may not agree 100% on certain things, but we recognize you are the top. So that sounds very reasonable to me. So I would say I'm not certain the probability of actually that to be true increased, but be that or not, does it really change for us?
Yeah, probably not. And I mean, when I heard this the first time, I also thought he's definitely using it as a hypothetical. He's not actually saying Elon. He's trying to make the whole free speech case. Matt, any thoughts on what he said on that?
Yeah, I thought it was hypothetical as well, but I'm also very certain that, Peter and Elon have had a very extensive relationship. Palantir was started just a few months after they sold PayPal together. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, Tesla or any other Elon Musk company wasn't utilizing Palantir. But, a lot of times these partnerships get kept in the dark for quite some time. But I think he was more so using it as a acknowledgement that, Alex and Elon are both very intelligent folks and come from the entrepreneur sort of mindset. And so I think with that, they respect each other and they respect each other's kind of expertise in areas of expertise. And I think that that's what he's referring to. I think the problem that Palantir runs into is they enter organizations that think of using Palantir software as a typical conventional piece of software. And in reality, Palantir is there to help change the way that you do things. And I think that's very scary for most organizations. And so what I think Alex is kind of referring to here is when people are saying, telling a doctor that they're wrong or they don't believe in what a doctor says, they still use them. I think that might particularly be based off of, what people do now, which is they might try to align a Google with the left party or a Facebook or Zuckerberg with the Democrats. And so they might say not use that. And then same thing with what they might be doing with Palantir with respect to the supporting the Ukraine war and being like, well, I don't really support any war, so why would I get involved whatsoever with this sort of company? But I think, hey, Mr. Sachin, how are you, man? Good to see you. It's been a while. The thing that I would think that, what he's trying to refer to is a lot of companies will say, we don't need your help. We know what we're doing. But it's like, well, if that's the case, why'd you call us up in the damn first place, right? You're obviously recognizing some sort of inefficiencies or ability to, put yourself in the right direction and digitalize your organization. But then you're sitting here being like, we think we know better, when you've been struggling to make products and get replaced, legacy products get replaced that took you 5 years to make and they get replaced in 3 weeks. Like that sort of shit is what Palantir has to deal with, is these egotistical people that don't respect that these guys aren't coming from a, hey, we know more about oil and gas, or hey, we know more about flying planes than you. They're here to say, we know how to organize data. We know how to help bring data in and give you the right opportunities to make the right decisions on your own and build software specifically for what your expertise is. Let us help you. And that's a different way to sell software than any other place that I've sort of seen, in 10 years of working in industry. And so anyway, long tangent to say, I'm pretty certain that Elon's using some of the products, but I don't think that that's what he was referring to, meaning Alex referring to specifically in that clip.
Okay, Sachin, thank you for joining with the Big Daddy glasses as always. What was your take on KARP doing this kind of, will you tell Elon to stop using Palantir if he disagrees with me? Do you think that was kind of a Freudian slip? Do you think there's actually some relationship there? Or do you think just pure hypothetical, nothing too serious?
So I don't think that was hypothetical, because that example he made was very direct. You don't make that kind of direct example because it can be implied in sort of relationship, and SEC can sue you. And the kind of scrutiny that Elon and both Alex gets all the time, I don't think that was just a hypothetical reference. It was a clear reference. Okay.
So
Wait, why would the SEC sue? What's the reasoning for that?
See, SEC will not sue you. Somebody will complain to SEC that by saying that you implied you have a strategic relationship which doesn't exist, and then SEC does it. And it has happened a lot of time. And the kind of yardstick that these companies go through, Okay, it's and it was very clear reference. And more important than that, I mean, if you see the body language of these two people who were sitting together, and they were very comfortable, the way they were talking. I cannot say it's just a pure coincidence that they decided to keep these two people sit together. They must have asked some preference.
Let's hear it one more time. Let's do it one more time, and then Sachin, I'll let you continue just to get a little bit more context. Here, 30 seconds here.
Best surgeon, you still go to them. And I look, I know Elon. I like him. I think he's a super important entrepreneur. We don't have to agree on everything. His products work. I am in the business of delivering. You could ask him, will you stop using Palantir because because KARP is going to support Ukraine? I will use.
Okay, maybe it's Sachin talking before hearing it, but after Sachin talk, now I'm like, maybe they are fucking working together.
So the idea is that if this was false, KARP could be vulnerable to a SEC accusation, which implies if he doesn't want to be fraudulent, that needs to be true, because if that is actually true, he can't be pursued by the SEC. Right.
Yeah, basically, Sachin, what you're saying is someone can go to the SEC, say, I invested in Palantir because KARP implied on national television they have a Tesla partnership.
And guys, you need to remember, I was on the part of the side where I was writing these kind of statements for people to speak in press at times. So, like, when you are declaring about a new partnership, what it will imply, what it will not imply, how SEC. So I have done that a couple of times. So have some awareness. Okay, so my interpretation of it is there was a clear indication that Elon or one of the Elon's company, which could be anything, which could be Boring, which could be Neuralink, which could be SpaceX. SpaceX makes more sense because SpaceX has a different level of sensitivity and more closer integration with government, which is already a very big client of Palantir. So, but that was a very clear hint. He has never given that kind of clear hint. A lot of time he will just say that I will not say. Okay, or we cannot say, or we cannot discuss about client. They are very clear about it, and he made a very, very direct reference. So to me, one of the Elon Musk company is actually using Palantir in one way or other way.
Now you made me pop a thought. Wasn't C3 AI CEO actually being accused of saying false things in the earnings call that made the people thinking the company was doing better than the reality?
And there are companies in US who only feeds on this. They only try to look through the statement, then they will do a class action lawsuits. I mean, this is a bread and butter business for a lot of people. So my understanding is that's a very clear indication. Now, what was more important, I think everyone has to have a reality check here is, see, there was no Frank Slootman in that meeting. There was no Tom Siebel. Actually, nobody even asked Tom Siebel about it, who has a stock taker of AI. Okay. So a lot of time people say, like, I mean, that famous guy, that beer cave, hopefully
Edwin, my guy.
He's
short Coca-Cola now. He's going against Buffett. That's his newest report.
Yeah. So I think what he needs to get a job, and he needs to first understand how companies actually work. Let me be very honest, because it's getting ridiculous at times. Okay. So he said Palantir as an AI imposter. Now, how an AI imposter, and that's an AI imposter which has been a clear target of democratic government and democratic administration. That guy is actually sitting in the meeting with everyone who is clearly a 500 billion plus kind of a company or 100 billion plus kind of a person in it himself. Okay, so if people don't understand that, is it a good enough proof for being imposter or not? I'm really sorry. I mean, like, I'm really surprised when people say that they don't understand what Palantir does. I mean, they should be ashamed on themselves. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of AIPCon, FoundryCon. There's a lot of testimony that is available. There's a lot of tutorials that are available on YouTube. And if people don't understand that, I think they should be simply ashamed of themselves.
Sachin, let me ask you the same question I asked Amit and Matt previously. What do you think the general awareness or perception of the average fund manager is right now? Because last year it was a complete no awareness. Now things, I think, are changing, but what's your perspective?
Meaning, if they own Palantir, do you think they actually understand what they own, or do you think they just bought it for the hell of it?
And what
So-
about the ones that don't own it yet?
So I mean, I invested in several funds over the time. I invested in fund of funds, and so this is my direct impression on people or fund managers, and I get to meet some of these people. That a lot of them, see, you guys have a bit of bias because you are sitting in US, especially, I mean, Matt and Amit, and you get to talk about some really, you get to listen some of the really good fund managers. So there is a bias that all fund managers are good. See, technically 95% fund managers are not only bad, they're really bad. See, fund management, like if I have to go and start a fund today, it's a very simple. I have a kind of a reputation. I can put some of my money. I can get some of my money. All I need to understand is that as much as 2% can pay my expenses and my salary. And if I go easily, I mean, so all I need is to start $25 million and I can get started a fund. Okay. And if you're starting in Singapore, less than 30 people, you don't even need a license for that. So the thing is that a lot of people who enter in fund industry, they do not enter for gains. They do enter for the 2% management fees. And if gain happens, and then the next part is now what to do the gains, they just follow each other. Okay. So there is a lot of hard mentality up there. Okay. Now this is where when you see that people eventually started going into Tesla, okay, then a lot of funds started going into Tesla. Tesla was there before, and funds who had independent thinking, only they went into Tesla before that. Once S&P happened, now you can see Tesla on the 13F of so many funds altogether. Then there are something which is, now this is where in my opinion, and again from outside in perspective, there is a difference between how fund managers behave in Europe versus how fund managers behave in US. There is a bit of like this alpha male culture, is that okay, I need to do something, I need to show something. Europe is very different. So because I know, I have a discussion, I have a friend, he's running a multi-family office, managing over 200 million, and we discuss about fund, and his idea is that my focus is first on risk management, and he used to manage some portion of my money earlier. So their idea is like, I will not do anything that looks stupid. I lose money, that's fine. If everybody else is losing money, I'm fine losing money. So there is a bit of defensive structure that comes in. Okay, Asia is very different. Okay, I mean, I worked for one of the PEVC fund here, but most of the fund here, and the reason I worked with it is that because they have a very US equity focus. But most people here are, okay, what I'm going to do in Hong Kong market, China market, what I'm going to do in Singapore market, what I'm going to do in India market. And then I asked about, okay, what about US and Euro? Yeah, we don't understand that. So most of the funds here are actually very different. Okay. And then like if you are sitting and of course, like investing in and out is also a bit cumbersome at time. So the fund industry, as we think, the general concept that we get is the fund industry is a very smart and sophisticated. It is sophisticated. It's not smart. It's actually quite a hard mentality. So that is why it is very important that you are careful enough to hear the right people. Now, why we talk about people like Ed Thorpe, Warren Buffett, Bill Ackman, okay, good or bad, because they have their own independent thinking. And they are not shy of sharing the independent thinking, and they are not shy of sharing the reason of that. I mean, like if you see like what Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett said about Elon Musk, they said it very simple. They said, we are in professions of making easy money. That's why we skipped Tesla. They praised Elon Musk, they praised Tesla a lot, but they had a very simple reason. There is no ashamed, okay, we didn't invest in Tesla because we wanted easy money. They didn't invest in a lot of companies because they wanted it. So they are very clear, like, this is our thinking, this is how we do it, this is how we have done it for 8 years. But the fund industry is driven by 2%. Okay, what is worse than fund industry is the structured product that bank sells you. Okay, so if you go to bank and you say, I want to buy protection for SPY, okay, the first bank will sell you a product that is a mix of 2-3 indexes. So all 2-3 indexes has to comply with that. The second thing is, there are certain exit dates. And then when you try to compare these products with the simple put options on SPY, which you can buy and sell anytime without any restriction, you will find that you can buy those options in half the price. So you are paying twice, you are losing flexibility. So basically their business is very simple. We don't give a fuck about whether you make money or not. We need to make money on fees. So this is a business of fees. This is not a business of performance for many people. So think about you, Arnie. So if you start a fund with 10 million euros, okay, you take 2% as management fees. Okay, it's such a small fund. Even if you, and all the free tools you use, 10 million euro is very easy to manage with the free tools. If you have a reasonable thinking, you give yourself 100,000 euros, you have 100,000 euros to run the expenses and everything. That's nothing. I mean, that's, you can do at any time of the day, as long as you are adventurous enough to do it. So that is the reality of a lot of funds.
You're already out of business.
Yeah, that is the reality of see, if you have like a simple, like if you pay like $99 for a simple membership for something like bar chart, I mean, you have more tools than a lot of funds have. Let me be okay. A lot of people, a lot of funds, they don't do any analysis. I can tell you, they do zero analysis. They invest based on analyst recommendations because they know they just can't do it. And they need to say, okay, I invested because 20 analysts said this. So I am not responsible. I completed my fiduciary duty. That is one of the reasons that you see that every time an analyst recommendation comes, and you go, that people start buying option because they know it's going to jump, because all these headless chickens are coming and they are going to buy because of that. And they are buying it. Then they know they are buying expensive, but they don't care because they think by doing this, they save their ass because they have a reason. That can show we are doing it because this is our fiduciary duty. This is not the right thing to do. This is a safe thing to do. So fund industry in general to me is a net negative industry, but there are some fund managers who are exceptional and who create some serious alpha. And that is why I'm always of a big opinion that most people who don't have time should do index investing. My two reservation about index investing is, the first thing is that, okay, it's a volume weighted. That means at the end of the day, it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. If something has a high volume, then every new dollar goes more volume to there. So it creates divergence in longer term if too much concentration is there. The first is. Second thing is that because index investing was passive, the people who are running the index invest like BlackRock and Vanguard, they started using the shareholder power of these passive investors to drive their own agenda. That was not what John Bogle has covered in his thesis in 1975. So
okay, speaking of that, I think this is a good transition point, right? Because you brought up BlackRock and these guys. Let's start off the conversation here. We'll start with Matt, then Sachin, then Arnie. So Biden's giving Zelensky $325 million. That was approved yesterday in new aid. Zelensky met with BlackRock, Bill Ackman, and I don't know why Bill Ackman was there, and JP Morgan to discuss raising funds. KARP was asked about this by Fox Business, and KARP said, look, you can agree or disagree, but I think we should help Ukraine. I think American companies like Google should not be selling to China. They should be helping the U.S. government, and more defense budget money should be sent to Ukraine. What were your thoughts on that, Matt? Do you think KARP's just talking up his book to get Palantir some more money, or do you think he's actually believing in Ukraine as a...
I think it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, I think nobody wants war. I don't want war either. I don't want people to die. But I think the thing is if you say don't help Ukraine, you destabilize the nation. You can then have Russia backed up against NATO for NATO territory, and who's to say that he won't move into Poland? And so that's kind of the fear, that if you don't help Ukraine, you're going to allow them to do what, because his back's against the wall, right? He's either living in a world where in 30 years the country is going to end in turmoil because they don't have the youth to be able to support the future generations of Russia, or he slowly just lets NATO back up to his walls and eventually take over that way. So he's kind of stuck between this rock and a hard place. And so if you just give up and let Ukraine fend for themselves, you're kind of allowing them to continue to progress. But at the same time, I don't want any war. So it's a no-win situation. But at the same time, if your goal as an organization, as a purpose-led organization like Palantir is to help the West in any sort of shape or form, help Europe, help the NATO allies, not necessarily for war, but it's now come to this point, whether you're saving for terrorism or what have you, it's now come to this point of saving NATO led countries to avoid further war, then I agree. I mean, you kind of have to fund it to make sure that a larger war in Europe doesn't break out than specifically in the Ukraine.
Sachin, your thoughts? Then we'll go to Arnie.
So let me just break it in few steps. So see, first thing is that there is a lot of assumption is what will help Ukraine. Okay, so I think no one is against helping Ukraine, but what will help Ukraine has a different interpretation. Okay, so when Alex Karp is coming up, Alex Karp is coming on a matter of principle that, see, there is no point that a small country is being bullied by a larger country. Okay, their sovereignty is violated and people are dying. Okay, so if we will be able to help it, and of course there is a damage sustained in Ukraine, and Ukraine as a world community, people need to go and support it. So that is one view. Now the thing is, what will help Ukraine in general? I mean, if war stops, will that be helpful? Yes, that will be helpful. Now, how the war will stop? War will stop when Russia stops the war. Ukraine is not in position to stop the war. They are only in position to reply if the war is ongoing. So what is going on globally that will help Russia to sit on table? Russia can only sit on table because their beef is with NATO. That NATO has to give certain assurances. And NATO is not prepared to give those assurances. See, NATO cannot get Ukraine as their member because Ukraine is in direct conflict right now. That means that puts NATO on direct conflict as of today if they are not, which is again debatable. Okay, so you need to see the clear picture. It is given Ukraine can never be member of NATO. It is given. So any politician or any corporation that is trying to flag that this is the end goal, no, this is not the end goal. Then you see where this money is going and how this money is going to Ukraine, because the underlying assumption is that money is going and this money is being utilized by Ukraine. See, a lot of this much money is actually given to military industrial complex. So they give, in return, they give equipment to. So the money actually goes into the US corporation. So there is a conflict of interest here because these people are actually funding some of the campaigns for a lot of these people. The second thing is, I think there is also significant evidence or at least allegation that there is some serious level of corruption that is ongoing in Ukraine. Okay, if you look back, why Trump was impeached because he said, oh no, you need to get me the evidence. So that was bad. But then if you see the whole connection between Biden and between Burisma, it at least warrant some investigation. Okay, and then so it is very difficult to say that at the top level that Ukraine is not having corruption. Okay, even if you go 15 years back and anybody can wake up and ask that what is the level of corruption in Eastern European bloc of countries, and even best guess is it's high. That is one of the reasons that these countries struggle to emerge out of it. It doesn't mean people are bad. People are really simple. People really want peace. They really love each other. They love world community in general. Okay, so this whole definition that what will help now, Alex Karp, in my opinion, has a definition which is broader. This is a definition that has been marketed by US government, in my opinion, but the way it is executed, it is focused on filling pockets of certain few. So do I agree with Alex Karp? Yes, I agree with Alex Karp. If it is done in the way Alex Karp wants, okay, I mean, that should be the way of doing it. Has it done any time in any war ever in the world? Whenever war happens, certain people always profits, and this is no exception. And until and unless people start acknowledging it, I think it is very difficult to actually support it with all the heart. Back to you guys.
Arnie, your thoughts?
Well, I love everything Sachin said. I think the big problem is that from the US perspective, there is actually an incentive to actually keep things going on. Not from everyone, I would say. My thought is if Palantir is providing the software for free, they don't have the incentive to to make it go longer. But for the hardware providers that you actually need an excuse to keep using their tools, you have the incentive to actually push that agenda of help, but don't help too much so that the war ends. That's my general thought. I may be wrong. I'm not an expert at all on these topics. I'm definitely willing to learn more. But from the perspective of a shareholder, I would say I'm happy that Palantir took a side, and that side aligns with my belief. So really not much to add apart from that.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. Obviously, it's a tough question for KARP to answer because it sounds like he just wants to, get rich. But in reality, I think he actually stands for some of these more national security principles. It's just a question now of if, the software in Ukraine actually gets them further to achieving those national security goals.
Well,
go ahead.
My only observation is that aligned with what we said before, when you see these people like Larry Fink, BlackRock, Ackman, and you see KARP being involved among this circle of people, that to me is the big signal. Remember that BlackRock officially disclosed they are raising funds to help the reconstruction of Ukraine. We at Davos, basically what KARP did was a fundraising campaign for Ukraine to think of the reconstruction, and Palantir officially got a contract to support the reconstruction. So clearly we are deep into the speculative side of the arguments, but from a shareholder perspective, I tend to be quite cynical. I'm happy to see Palantir aligned with this big circle of power and money.
Yeah, I agree. Sachin, we had AIPCon last week. What were your thoughts on 150 new clients, 50% month-over-month growth, and in general, some of the client testimonials we were seeing are just absolutely phenomenal. Any updated thoughts on AIPCon, and do you think it can be this exponential growth driver for Palantir in the next couple of years?
So two thoughts, Amit. First thought is that you got a lot of validation again on the AI prowess and what kind of problem Palantir is solving end-to-end at enterprise scale. So all was good. Now, looking the history that we have seen these kind of events before, but the immediate impact on revenue following the next earning call has been underwhelming. Okay, so if you ask me what is the short-term impact, I will expect they will just beat marginally again. We are not there yet where we are going to see the exponential. We are not at that inflection point. Okay, everything is good. Product is being praised by all enterprises. Government is super impressed by it. Okay, no ads, revenue is growing. But when we talk about exponential gain or something which is equivalent to how the AWS grew, we are not there yet, in my opinion. Okay, we could be there in times, and like I said, they have improved a lot over so many things, but go to market and sales is still something they need to crack further.
Do you think this shift from this is something Vince actually underscored in a video? I think we didn't put enough attention on that. KARP basically said we had to change our model from a 12-month pilot, so we have a confirmation that pilots are actually very long, to a 5-day bootcamp because we didn't have the resources. So that's basically underscoring we were not that scalable yet. We wanted to be more, but we had to change things because basically with a bootcamp, we can manage many clients altogether. Do you think this is the go-to-market strategy that you were seeking to see last years? Because I remember you were quite critical on the go-to-market.
So I mean, like
right
even
strategy.
even with couple of discussions I had with my Palantir friends, I mean, I know that go-to-market strategy has become a bit short cycle. That one I know. Okay, and it has improved. See, but the challenge is that Palantir is still a top-down selling, and top-down selling you cannot compress this time too much. That's the challenge. Okay, the only way you can do a top-down selling is that so if you see AWS was top-down selling. Okay, but when AWS was doing top-down selling, those days, a lot of organizations were in this pilot mode. Let's try this on AWS. So AWS was kind of getting into a lot of organizations as a Trojan horse. That when enterprises were committing to do a large investment, AWS was already having a foot in the company. And that is what Palantir is missing. You can have a top-down selling strategy, but you really need to find one or two ways to deploy very thin-tiered product on demand very fast with no barriers to introduction in the enterprise. Okay, if you see the CRM in general, so CRM had the same. When CRM came, they had one tool, and now they are selling like a whole suite of different kind of tools because they are already there.
How do you define a top-down selling in this case? Because I think I'm missing this point. When you say Amazon was selling top-down, what do you mean with that? And why is different from Palantir?
So, for example, like if you go like 10 years back, and I mean, Matt will know this. So, Matt, if somebody comes to you and they want to sell you Eclipse and goes 10, 15 years back, they need to talk to asset manager. So, Eclipse is a reservoir simulator. Okay. Because the deal used to be happen at a very different level. Okay, now if somebody has to sell Eclipse and Eclipse is a part of Delphi, it has to come as a package of a whole online digital suite. So CEOs have to talk each other. Okay, I remember like all the software sales I was doing between 2005 to 2007. I never actually interacted with our CEO, not even our VPs or anything. That it's pretty much like account manager. Nowadays, like in my last year, anything and any deal that goes, CDOs, CTOs, I mean, they are cloud partners, technology partners. So the thing what is happening is you sell something if top people are aligned, and you need to get top, middle level. So that is what I mean by top-down selling. Now, in order to get the top-down selling done, you need longer times. But top-down selling becomes easier if at lower level your product already exists within the company. So I'll give you an example. Like in one of the case I was discussing, and I discussed with team and I discussed about the strategic partnership with Palantir, and nobody knew about it. Then said we need to get some feedback. And when they started inquiring, then somebody said, oh, somewhere in the finance department in our company, we are looking to acquire Palantir product. So then I asked these guys why they want to acquire it. Okay, so that particular time I realized that completely disconnected, a support function has an awareness that Palantir has a good product of that. So Palantir has to figure it out. See, I'm not saying that what they are doing is wrong. I'm not saying that they need to change strategy. I say that why we are not seeing an exponential kind of revenue growth as we have seen in some of the other companies. Okay.
Sachin, do you think this boot camp example or this boot camp new thing they're putting out is a good strategy?
It is. I mean, see, first thing is that in the strategy is that you need to test and try different things, which they are doing, and they have been humble, and that's a good thing. They are trying different things. Okay. See, there is a point. Like, so for example, like if you go to 2009 and you see the example of Netflix wouldn't have existed if AWS weren't there. So the whole existence of Netflix actually came on what AWS has done. And there are several companies that came like this. So in an enterprise setting, when you have a product that can cover almost all of your current needs and potentially future needs, eventually there will be enterprises that will be completely relying on that. Okay, so apart from this, now talk about AI just for in general. See, AI, just remove the gimmick out of it. What companies are looking? Companies are looking to become more lean, more efficient, and whatever they can cut in terms of fat. Okay, so in order to do these things together, I mean, you need a product that gives you larger visibility and larger connection within the enterprise. See, you don't sell an enterprise product which is large if you cannot disrupt the existing business value processes, because you need to show a very clear way that this is how you used to do, this is how it will be done now, and that's the value you are getting in terms of time, in terms of money, and in terms of lowering your risk profile. So that is how the top down selling is. If you are doing a bottom up selling, I mean, I used to sell Eclipse. Matt, I think you still use Eclipse, if I don't know.
No
Okay,
comment.
I will go and I will say, Matt, this is our latest reservoir simulator. It can use Linux cluster in the back. You will save this much. Matt is convinced. And then Matt goes to his asset manager and Matt says, dude, we are buying Eclipse. And he said, let's consider. I said, no, I already have model built in Eclipse. I don't have time and we don't have time. And the deal was done. So this is very different. This is how I did 15, 20 years ago. This is not how it is done today.
Sachin, let me ask you this question. I think is the right opportunity to exploit your knowledge in this field. Now we are discussing about top-down selling against bottom-up selling. But what about the weird mix where you basically go all together? And I ask this question for this simple reason. Amit, can you share the screen, please? We found this clip of Trey Stephens, who is one of the early employees who managed actually the sales team of the forward deployment engineers. So he was focused on the government side. And on the government side, he disclosed basically the strategy that worked. Initially, they were trying this top-down approach, and it didn't work. And they found out this squeeze strategy. So I'd like to share these minutes, and I would like to ask you, actually, what's different from what you hear here versus what you see on the corporate side?
And we learned about how to do the squeeze. So I'll explain this. People usually try to sell to the user, right? This is like the idea is like the people that understand the problem best are the ones that are most likely to buy. The problem is that the people that are facing these problems in the government, they're not the budget authority. They don't have the ability to buy. So they have the ability to tell the people that have the ability to buy that they like something, but they can't actually pull the trigger themselves. And so, you have the user that's pushing up to their procurement officer or their budget lead or whatever. And then you have Congress and agency heads that are pushing oversight and their own demands on the department. And then the people in the middle are frozen oftentimes. And you could like rant for days about how annoying procurement officers are, but like I don't think they're bad people. They're just they're in a tough situation. Like they're not using the things that they're buying. They also don't have unilateral authority to do whatever they want. So they're just kind of stuck. So what you have to do is you have to squeeze them. So you get the bottom to groundswell up and you get the top to push down. And then you continue putting pressure on the middle until finally it just like, it pops and you win. That pincer move is something that's not well understood by a lot of startups.
So is Palantir actually trying to do that with the NHS? Squeezing both from the top and the bottom to poof?
I think first thing, this is what I meant, like when I said that you need something in the bottom and to support. And actually, he has explained it far better than me because he has done it in real life at a far larger scale. So I think in government, they have managed to do it. But in the corporate, I haven't seen example of it yet. It might be happening, but I haven't seen example of it. And this is what actually I would love them to do it. It can happen. So for example, say I'm trying to do a startup. Okay. So my startup, like my go-to-market strategy is entirely based on this one hypothesis that if you make user addicted, even outside their corporate, they will push and they will internally manage whatever it takes, okay, to buy it at an enterprise level. Okay, so the thing is like how you do it. Okay, so that is very different. Okay, so the quality of product is unmatched. We have plenty of evidence of it. Anybody who's saying that product is imposter and it doesn't do anything, yeah, the guy is full of bullshit. Okay, there is a lot of evidence that is in front of you that can tell the product is good. The question they're asking is, the product is so good, why the company is not increasing 50% year on year? Okay, and that's where we need to break it down. The first thing is we are in the slowdown. Second thing is that, like I said, that in order to incorporate a product like Palantir, somebody has to be prepared enough to disrupt existing business processes. And this is where a lot of power politics, existing passive aggressiveness in organization that comes in, which a lot of organizations are not prepared to do. Okay, so there are dark reasons. There's a dark side why people are not doing it. Okay, I know. I mean, like in one of the project, I remember like the whole idea of digital transformation was changed because EVP of sales felt that if we go completely online, the sales organization will be sized down by 60% and he will lose power. And he had enough corporate capital within the company and the whole initiative was killed. Okay, so how they manage it, and the only way to manage it is very simple, that you deliver product. Okay, so for example, say I'm taking the case of Pepsi and Coca-Cola, and Pepsi and Coca-Cola have this kind of stalemate where they both can fight each other aggressively when needed. Now suddenly a company gets a kind of a competitive advantage of cost or data, which is better than other company has no choice. They have to find something similar to that. Okay, so more Palantir captures the leaders in different, more they show what they are doing. So take the case of Tyson Food. Tyson Food goes and they say, we saved this much money. In a business where cents matter, can their competition afford not to do that? They don't do it, they're out of cycle in 5 years. So the way, I mean, like the pincer movement in this particular case is that you capture and you demonstrate that how the value is created, so others have no choice but to accept you. Another way you can do it is that you make these. So we have seen like Palantir has done these kind of strategic alliances where somebody else builds a product on top of Foundry and they are selling the product, which is to me is one of the best way of doing, because first you get access to the sales dollar and sales team and existing relationships of different companies. Okay, you build on top of that. Somebody like the product, okay, and that's where, like I said, you can create, okay, the product already exists in some form in the organization. As of today, the biggest success stories that we know of Palantir has actually happened through the top-down selling. The BP went to Palantir and BP said, okay, what can you do for us if you want to do something big? If you see the case of NHS and CDA and all, they were in a case of, guys, we don't know. We are having this COVID pandemic. 2 weeks, can you sort it out for us? Okay, so that kind of crisis was a unique opportunity. Now they have shown it, but how they do it in a more trickle down way, that is still a bit of challenge. Okay, I mean they are solving it. They are selling more and more. Their revenue is growing. Okay, even if we can say that it's underwhelming, but it is still growing. They don't have any debt. Their product quality is good. So it's just a matter of building out sales and scalability now, which is a challenge at this time, but let's hope they can sort it out.
I think Amit is giving us the wrap-up music, but I do have one of the most important questions of the night, if I might steal Amit's thunder here. Are you still over 100% invested in Palantir?
I'm still 100% invested in Palantir in my long-term account. Yes. In my short-term account, as of today, my 96% position is SoFi. But like I said, in my short-term account, okay.
And in your short-term account, 90% is SoFi. Wow.
96% is SoFi.
And is that shares or is that a combination of shares and
So
options?
I bought shares around $8. Okay, now currently the position is red, but like as a short-term account, that means if positions don't improve, then I'll start aggressively selling covered calls on it.
So do you sell covered calls also when you're in red?
In long term, I don't sell generally covered calls, but once in a while I do sell.
Mm-hmm. So long-term ones?
So no, whenever I sell covered calls, I generally sell covered calls 1 or 2 weeks nowadays. Earlier, I used to sell a month. My stocks was called one time because of that, so I had to then start selling puts.
Something so volatile like a SoFi and Palantir. I like to write only weeklies as well.
So on one account, I'm very aggressive. On one account, I'm a bit defensive. So that's how I try to keep these two things different. Okay, I cannot say, which actually both have done well in different windows. Okay, so it's not a matter of strategy can only be just as good or bad when you do it for 8-10 years, and then you can make, okay, this one did better in general. One strategy takes far longer time commitment from me than other. There is no doubt about it. Okay,
I think that comment sums it up.
But I have diversification. I have some sort of diversification, but in terms of private positions.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like
Hey, Sachin, you own SpaceX. Why don't you call up the SpaceX guys and ask them if they're using Palantir? Just get the intel for us.
I cannot do that. Okay. Because the way investor relation works is, and I was working with fund, and actually the position I have both are on cap tables. You can submit your queries. Okay, your queries is weighed upon with every query they are getting. Whoever has the highest probability, you can ask questions, but there is no certain. And to be honest, as an investor, I will never ask that question because it doesn't create any value for me.
Sachin, let me ask you, on the short-term account, you are heavily invested in SoFi, which means implicitly you are very little exposed to Palantir there. Does this mean that to your eyes, short-term Palantir is not attractive any longer?
So no, it's not like that. In short term also, I take Palantir once in a while. Recently I took a very big loss in Roblox. I think when Roblox dropped from 38 to 30. I decided to cut I like that company, but it was very clear that I don't understand few things about it. Luckily, I decided to cut it at 30. I also had covered calls sold, so I didn't lose from 30 to 38, but I had a very large position, so I still lost significant amount of money. But yeah, so my selection of companies is kind of trickling down. That in short term, I have a selection of 5-6 companies, and I try to stay only in those companies when there is opportunity. You can call it a swing kind of strategy if you like. Okay, is it good or bad? Since I'm doing it, I would say I like it, but I think there is no bias. Only time will tell it's good or bad.
And how do you see the current valuation of $15? I remember you were quite hinting on the fact that, hey, revenues are slowing and it's hard to keep a very high valuation with revenues slowing. Is still a concern to you, or are you seeing confidence from how AAP is evolving?
So you're absolutely right. That at times there is a concern, but then I see okay, what market thinks about it. If you go and you see the price action, we saw some stocks have broken down their 6 months lows. Palantir kind of held around is 13.68. So what it is telling me that, okay, what do I think is different, but market is actually very confident when it is between this 13.5 to 14.5 range at this valuation and this kind of performance. And we also have to be aware that at this point, better be defensive, because if next quarter is gap positive, then notionally the eligibility criteria for S&P is matched. If you go back and you look all the companies who have matched the eligibility criteria, or most of these companies has seen 10 to 30% gain immediately. Okay, so at this particular point, see, your strategy has to also encompass, like, if you are wrong, what will happen? So at this point, if I say, okay, at this valuation, as of today, and with similar growth, what is happening? I mean, yes, I mean 15 to 17 to me, if it is in that bracket, I at least like 17, 18 at this particular point, I would say, yeah, that's a bit expensive at times. Okay, if you account for future growth and everything, I think then it's pretty inexpensive. But I mean, I don't know like what kind of reaction will happen when the S&P eligibility criteria happen. I look other companies. I remember I was in Tesla when the declaration came. Tesla was swinging between 410 to 430 during those days, and suddenly this thing happened, and overnight it was 530. And by the time I sold that time, I think on the day of inclusion, it was 680 or something. So I have seen this kind of jump in most of the companies. Okay. And especially if you have a company that has good quality balance sheet like Palantir, I would expect. Whether it happens or not, I don't know.
What's the worst thing you think could happen to Palantir, both business and stock?
See, business, I mean, I have a couple of risks which I expect. See, within the government sector and within the political sector and within the political activist, a lot of people put money against Palantir. Okay, and a lot of time we just laugh about it. Okay, yeah, they're doing it again. I mean, you see what Fox Club and all these things which are doing, and see, these things can really bite you at times. Okay, I mean, we in Palantir community has a kind of an accepted mindset that the haters will hate, but it will eventually prevail. See, thing is, haters might make it difficult to prevail at times. That could happen. So that is the biggest risk I have. Okay, we have already seen. I don't want to criticize anyone in government, but the quality of people and the quality of their conviction and their thinking about certain companies is a concern. So that is the business part. Okay, the stock market part, like in terms of a stock valuation, I think there is a lot of thinking that things might be frothy for a while, or things might have run or extended a little more than given the expectation of price rate cuts and tackling of inflation, which might be a little overcooked. So there could be a pullback. Okay, if that happens, that happens. I mean, I don't care about that too much.
Sachin, last two rapid fire questions, then we'll end out the pod. NHS deal supposedly announced September 28th. What does your gut tell you? Think we get it or no?
My gut tell me that they will get the NHS deal, and then there will be lawsuits, and after that it will be put on a stay order. Though that's how I expect things to happen. Okay, because that is how British works. Okay, because if they don't give it to Palantir, I mean, see, there is no the technical qualification and the track record is very clear in favor of Palantir. Okay, so if they don't give it to Palantir, so that is seen as a weakness on government behalf. Government will not do that. Okay, if they do not put stay after the award, then government is not listening people, which is not a British culture also nowadays. So my understanding is the award will be given and then it will be put on hold, and then after that there will be a period of renegotiations and settling these people down. Okay, so that's how I expect things to happen.
Okay, and final question. Cathie Wood is doing a podcast with Shyam Sankar next week. What is just your raw thoughts knowing that she sold out of it, now she's back in, and now she's interviewing the CTO about AI in a couple of days?
So, see, we have seen Cathie has done a podcast earlier with Elon also. And we also remember like how big the story they have made out of Tesla. Okay. So Cathie has a lot of companies of conviction, but when they do this kind of discussion with a certain company, that to me is an indication, okay, this time we are going down deep with you in the bed. Okay, we will not care about small things happening here and there. Good or bad, we are going to stay for you a little longer than a lot of other investments.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so what I understanding is that probably she has better and longer conviction with Palantir this time than it was before. That's why, I mean, they are ready to do it. Also, they understand, see some of the content they do in terms of discussion only, it's good quality at times. I mean, you can laugh about the valuations they project, but the optimist side of technology is rarely covered by analysts. So we have to give credit to Ark for that side. And my understanding is this discussion is expected to be quite open. That means anything could be discussed. Okay, they will try to understand what is happening on the AI space. They will try to understand what is happening on the enterprise side of it. So it's going to be very informative, as I expect. Let's see how it goes. It's funny that it is happening on the same day when the NHS deal is expected. Okay, there could be chance that we might get delay of 3-4 weeks. Okay, but it's fun. It's going to be a fun week.
All right. That's it for us. Thank you all for joining. We'll be back next week and to recap all the crazy stuff that's going to potentially be happening this week. Thank you, Sachin, for joining randomly and always being available for us. Really appreciate it. We will see you guys next Friday, and we'll see if we get this NHS deal. And we'll keep going from there.
Hey, thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Matt, have fun with your maid. See you guys. Bye.
Good night. Ciao, ciao.